Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Bonjour,
bonjour à
Friday.
tous.
Hi.
Salut,
Hey,
Steven.
Hi.
our very
Hello.
special guest this week is Stephen Artinian. Now, specialist in brain, in neurology or neurobiology, and things related languages. Definitely. Today we want to talk to Stephen about everything connected to brain and languages. Stephen was a, a presenter last year 2018, and is also a participant for all the past events. So we are very happy to have you on our show today, Stephen.
Oh, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
And a presenter at other events, right? Because I
Yeah.
saw you speak at Polyglot Gathering as well
Yeah,
last year.
Bratislava. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you go to any other events
I've been to
apart from
I've been
ours?
to so I've been to other events. Not as a speaker. I've been to the I was
Okay.
at the Polyglot the conference twice.
Yeah.
It was last year in Ljubljana
Yep.
and in New York too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe we met in New York, actually.
Yeah, we met in New York.
If
Yeah.
I'm
That
not
was like
mistaken.
2015, I think.
New
Yeah. It was in
York was
2015.
2015.
Yeah.
But I didn't meet Tetsu. I didn't meet Joey.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
When,
That's the irony of things, eh?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so Stephen, so last year you gave a fantastic talk. We got great feedback.
Thanks.
Uh, so for those of you, for those of us who have not seen the presentation, perhaps first we'd like to know about who Stephen Artinian is,
Hmm.
your background in the neural side of things, and
Hmm.
also the connection with
Language.
your
Sure.
language journey.
Yeah. So yeah. So the I actually I got into the neuro. So I'm not a neuroscientist or anything. I just always I tell people that because there are people who actually I don't have a degree in neuroscience, but I was so I'm a coach. I'm a professional coach, and I coach people. I do both executive or leadership coaching. There are different names for it. It's leadership coaching and personal development coaching or life coaching. I do both things. And the when I was trained as a coach, I was really interested in all these findings from the brain about the brain, from neuroscience about neuroplasticity, and how that really changes how we view the human learning process, how people learn, how they form new habits, how they set goals, how they manage their emotions. And there really been these breakthroughs in brain science. So the coaching program that I looked for was one that really incorporated this understanding of the brain into like human development. And and I was actually, the talk that I gave was inspired by I actually took a course in a course in language coaching. I don't really do language coaching, but right now I'm really working in the field of like I said, executive coaching and life coaching. But one of the first coaching courses I did was in language coaching, where they apply these coaching concepts to language learning. And and that was with a woman named Rachel Pauling had organized that course. She's based. She has a company called the Efficient Language Coaching. And in fact, if anyone's interested in that, I think it's a great course for people who are specifically interested in doing language coaching. So that's kind of what really got me into the whole field of coaching at first, and a lot of the raw material for my talk was inspired by the course that I did with Rachel, but additional reading that I did, particularly from a gentleman named David Rock, who's a coach who's really made a lot of breakthroughs in applying brain science to the field of coaching. Um, and Yeah, I mean, and I've been interested in languages since I've been, my passion for languages goes back. Oh, I didn't really discover it until I was around 19. I think maybe I was a
Okay.
bit later than, but when I discovered it, then it was just, wow, I just kind of got the language bug, and it was, it was just something that, like all of us in this community, I think was just something that has become like a major part of my life in terms of
Fantastic.
how I pass my free time. I use languages in my coaching business because sometimes clients want to be coached in not in English. They want to be coached
Hmm.
in their native language, whether they're like in Italian or Spanish or in French, and that's a huge advantage to be able to speak the language. Or
Well, I think being able to speak those languages gives you a distinct advantage in that you can build trust much quicker.
Yeah.
And this,
Yeah.
I mean, in this type of coaching environment, I believe trust would be something that's critical.
Trust is like the trust is basically is the foundation for everything.
Well, there you go.
Creating trust.
So if you can reach them at the
Exactly.
very core with their language, then you're a step ahead.
I've even had clients, where most of it's in English, but I had some clients from Spain, and we basically had an agreement. Look, when you're any difficulty in expressing something, just speak in Spanish, and they know I understand. So it doesn't have to be like formalized, right? We can switch languages, but I'm really able to understand that, if they're having, I don't want language to get in the way of them being able to, to express what they need to express, and to make sure that I really understand what they're saying.
Yeah. So you said you've been doing this for?
I've been doing this for the coaching for about 3 years now. So I'm relatively new at it.
Okay.
I've been doing coaching. Yeah, I've been doing coaching. Full time, relatively new. I've been kind of doing it part time, but now I've started doing it full time for about the last 3 years. I currently, for the time being, I work for a technology company, Cisco Systems. I'm actually an internal coach within the company, so I coach.
Wow.
Executives and
hire a full-time internal coach.
Yeah. So I'm doing that.
That's amazing.
So so that's kind of, and it's an international company. So I'm coaching people in different parts of the organization.
I'm happy to hear, because I'm thinking this kind of need for not just coaching, but I'm assuming that you do a lot of like mentorship and probably a lot of intercultural liaison type.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. So, so like the coaching and mentoring are a bit different, because think of like a mentor would be more like think of like a tribal elder, someone like an elder who's giving advice, who has expertise about that topic. Where coaching is different, because although a coach does give advice, but only when my job as a coach is basically to help the person figure out for themselves. Because, and if you look at this from a neuroscience perspective, as I mentioned in my talks, and since our brains are unique, if I give you advice, it's kind of based on my unique vision of the world, right? How I see the world. Whereas if I'm able to have you through like the coaching process, through really being on the same wavelength, asking questions that are designed to help you to really think. And then, so it's kind of like a coaching conversation is like a dance. And the idea is for you to come up with your own answers, because they're going to be unique to you. And you're going to be far more energized if you figure out a course of action, rather than me telling you what to do. That can be helpful, but it's a lot more powerful and motivating for you if I help you figure it out yourself. That's really how coaching works. Where mentoring usually is a little bit more like in the field of like language. I think a lot of people do language coaching, and I think that's kind of mixture of coaching and mentoring, right? Because you need to be sharing some like technical knowledge about the content, right? I mean, it'd be difficult to coach someone in the language if you don't speak it, right? But so I think that's an example where you'd be doing some mentoring as well.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is new. So from the time you got bitten by the language bug around the 1920 age until now, and coaching, what's everything in between, especially with respect to languages?
With language. So I've spent a lot of time. I lived in. I've traveled a lot. I had international roles at work. So I spent some time in. I did an MBA. I was an exchange student in Italy.
Wow.
I did an MBA in Italy.
Well, that's where you got your Italian from.
Yeah, I also got an Italian wife.
Oh, okay, that helps.
I got a full dose of Italian.
There you go.
Okay,
there you go.
And then we came back to the U.S. and I had different roles. I worked in Latin America. I worked in the area of finance. But because of my language skills, they put me in the Latin America area. I was based in Miami, but I traveled a lot to Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, Chile. So I was involved in Latin America. I was in charge of the risk management function. So, but I was able to use my language skills, because just because, again, it was kind of, if people had difficulty, you know, writing reports for me in English, I just told them, well, just do them in Spanish, do them in Portuguese, you know, and it was fine because I was able to read them. You know, I was able, when I went to those countries and they took me to visit clients, I was able to, you know, meet with the clients and
Again,
you know,
that's,
Spanish.
you know, right
a lot
away.
of practical uses for language. Yeah, and it really made a huge difference. People really
definitely
appreciate you. You know, especially if you're North American. I mean, you know, and you have this kind of, you know, you don't want to convey that this kind of like typical stereotype of North Americans that they don't know how to speak the language. It's really a breath of fresh air for people to see, wow, you know, you're really making an effort to try to understand our culture and our business. And I think once you, there's just so much, it's not just the language, it's just, the language is like the tip of the iceberg. You start to really understand the culture, people relate to you, you create that feeling of trust, and then people start to really view you as kind of one of their own.
It's all about the communication. You know, at work when people ask me stuff about careers and whatnot, you know, the technical knowledge is obviously important to start, but I always say just, you know, learn about how you can talk to people, how you can convince people, how you can persuade people, how you can negotiate with people. You know, this communication aspect of everything is what makes you produce the outputs, get to the results, you know, and you never do it alone. You always do it with somebody else. So if you cannot,
because I imagine someone else will have the same technical knowledge as you, but
always.
I guess no one else will be you if what you do is right, is good, you know, in terms of how you want to reach your goals and how you communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, other people are always going. There's always going to be someone who knows more about a topic than you do. I mean, there's always someone. So, and
So hence my comment earlier about, you know, I'm happy to see that Cisco is having an you know, a full-time internal coach, and also this international buffer. I would say somebody who can really, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I would say what Cisco. So it's not, you know, I don't do the coaching full time. I do other things as well at Cisco. So it's not Cisco. It's not full time, but I do other things as well.
In my company as well.
You have an internal coaching program. Yeah.
Okay. In my company as well. I mean, I live in Canada, but I work with the Japan office pretty much, you know, full time. And basically, what I do is I coach. I mentor. I think it's more of a mentoring type of role for the leadership team in Japan. And then I also do liaison work between our Japanese team and the global team and our clients. Clients often Japanese clients, so then with our global team, I need to do that buffering.
That's great.
This type of work, there's just more and more within our company, and I'm thinking any company. So people, you know, who have various languages and cultural knowledge, thinking, you know, other than translation or any really typical, traditional language professions, I think you can think about how to use this
exactly
in different corporate roles also.
Yeah, there's the cultural intermediation part. You know, there's the part of so for me, for example,
recognizing that, I think.
Yeah, it's recognized it. So I also worked, you know, after my time in Latin America, we moved to Italy, and I worked in Italy for 10 years, and I was part of the management team of a financial institution there. It was actually an Italian company. It was owned by a Belgian bank. And they had an Italian company, a finance company in Italy. So they hired me to be part of the management team. And so, you know, I was, managing, there I was managing an Italian team. But in Latin America, I was managing kind of a multinational team. So, yeah, I think it's also and I think those things have just accelerated since then in terms of the world we live in, right? Because now, especially with the technological breakthroughs, big companies like Cisco, for example, basically most people work remotely. So, you know, everything is done kind of like this over virtual but still there's this need for cultural. It's more than just cultural sensitivity. It's just having an understanding of, you know, how business is done in other countries. That, you know, there's also this really big movement about in the corporate world about diversity and inclusion. And a lot of studies have showed that the more diverse a team is, you know, and that, I'm not talking, that's diversity. And I'm not talking diversity in just like the politically correct way. I'm diversity of just really, you can get as many different people on a team. Statistically, that's been shown. Those teams tend to be more engaged and produce better results than teams that are homogeneous. Right. So if you have teams with, lots of different, all just people of all different, nationalities, male, female, different religions, different, basically any difference on the human spectrum, those teams, because we all can't be great at everything.
Yeah.
Right. So when you have a team basically where, you've got different people who are with different strengths, that leads to a well-rounded team.
Mm-hmm.
It's a well-rounded team is a team that's made of people who aren't necessarily well-rounded people, because I don't think anyone can really be well-rounded. I think that's kind of a myth, but if you put a diverse team together and you have a well-rounded team, that's unbeatable.
Fully agree. And if you can, I think as a prerequisite, you need a team of members who are very open-minded towards other ideas and cultures, and they need to be, have a tendency to be accepting.
Yeah. But yeah, in terms of the language also, and then, language has been a part of my life for years in the sense that I'm always learning new languages, always trying, or, I'm always like dabbling in language.
So let's do our typical count of the languages, which ones are.
Oh yeah, let's do the count first.
I'm not. Yeah, so it's always a little bit intimidating because I'm nowhere, but obviously English, and my second language is Italian, and then I'm also fluent in French and Spanish, not to the same level as Italian, but and I also, so I would say those are the French, Italian, other than English, Italian, Spanish, and French are my strongest languages. And then I'm able to, speak conversational Portuguese, conversational German. Right now I'm really learning Armenian. I've been learning Armenian for the last few years.
Wow.
I'm finding it much more, I'm making nice progress, but it's just, it's much more of a challenge than the other languages because it's so different.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine for you have a family background, right?
I do, yeah. As you get my last name
is Armenian, correct?
Yeah. So, but again, thanks to technology, with italki and I've been able to find these great teachers in Armenia, and I just had a lesson yesterday, and I have Armenian teachers in Armenia, and I do my lessons.
Okay, so you focus on Eastern Armenian, not Western.
Yeah, very good. It's good. Yeah, I'm doing Eastern Armenian. Yeah, and it wouldn't have, it's possible because of technology.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And the other thing, I'm also interested in these like quirky languages because I also have been learning. I took lessons on italki in Neapolitan dialect, which is a dialect of Italian, and in Creole, which is a pidgin language from Sierra Leone in Africa, which is a pidgin English, which I think is just a delightful language. So I've also I've been learning a little bit of some Creole as well, and so I've just and then I've dabbled in other languages. I dabbled in Japanese a little bit. I dabbled in Turkish, but nothing to really. So that's pretty much my list.
It's still a pretty good count in the end. I mean,
yeah.
You put them together. I mean, it's certainly nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, not that there's anything to be ashamed of for if you're just starting to learn. But I mean, it's I think a lot of people who are into languages who follow us, they're in the same category as you. I mean, I basically have a similar count as well. You don't have to be 12, all the way. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
We get this a lot, at LangFest and definitely at Polyglot Conference and Polyglot Gathering, I'm sure. How many languages do you need to speak to go to LangFest? Even folks like even Benny. We talked to Benny last year, and he was saying, at first I didn't go to these conferences because I was afraid people would, make me, test me on all my languages and whatnot. And saying, Benny Lewis saying this? Now, he's just one of the most respected polyglots out there. So I guess we all sort of naturally have this tendency of being intimidated by multilinguals and polyglots. But when you go to an event like LangFest or Polyglot Conference, you immediately realize that all this was just nonsense. Everybody is so accepting. Everybody's so inclusive.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Yeah. No, that's definitely mine. And I think it's also important to recognize that there are different, there are different language levels, right? I mean, like the fact, like right now, for example, I'm really trying to, reinforce my skills in French and Spanish, to coach in those languages, you know, to really, especially if when coaching with managers, because you know, it's a different, you know, it's a different level. It's not just that, it's also learning that what I find amazing is you can feel really comfortable talking about certain subjects, but then talking about something, you know, I was trying to explain to my you know, with a language, a French teacher I have, you know, I was just trying to talk about neuroscience in French and explain, you know, the workings of the brain. And that's just a challenge, right? Because you're like, wow, I'm pretty comfortable in French. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, tripping over words. So I think that you can always grow. And I think language it really depends on the topic that you're talking about.
Of course.
And it works the other way too.
Yeah.
I've always had, you know, my colleagues from Japan, if they go to the States, they're expats in the States, they can function very well in a working environment with the technical, you know, dialogues.
Exactly.
But then they always tell me, Tetsu, you know, once I get to the dinner table, I just can't talk. So it works the other way also, where.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's
It's like a new scale in the end, you know. You should maybe have, because we have level scales, you know, like especially the Common European Reference Framework, you know, A, B, C, stuff like that. But you could have horizontal scales as well, sectorial. You know, I'm good about everyday topic. I'm you know, B2 at everyday topics in this language. And you know, I'm B1 technical subjects, you know, in this language. Actually, that would add nuance to the whole thing. Maybe that's something we should do.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, you know. And again, you know, to bring like the brain, you know, into it again. It's this thing I'm just so really interested about is that, you know, our brain tends to perceive threats everywhere. You know, just kind of automatic. And I mentioned that in our talk. And I think that, particularly when it comes to like in language learning, I think that, you know, if you really get down to it, it's kind of a threat response, right? You know,
oh wow,
you're comparing yourself to the other people, right? I'm not good enough, right? So it's really primal. I mean, I think I think the mistake we make is to, you know, or at least that I did until I figured this out was, you know, to kind of beat yourself up for having that threat response, like, you know, it was so, you know, you were bigger than that. But the reality is, when I accept it, is like, wait, it's part of the way we're wired. It's there. I'm not going to try. What I have to learn how to do is recognize it when it's there, and then use like the more rational part of my brain, just by recognizing that it's there, that, wow, I'm feeling like a little bit intimidated talking to this person, or, you know, and just when you recognize it, that in itself kind of takes the sting out of it. And, you know, I think that
fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. I never really thought of it as that kind of wiring. You know, I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. I don't know if
sure,
and,
absolutely.
He talks about this a lot, right? He also talks a lot about focus and energy flows towards whatever you focus on, but that's a
absolutely
topic.
Yeah.
But definitely this. He talks about how we are as you know, as animals, I guess. We're the fight or flight response is something that's, you know, so ingrained that we're just naturally negative about things.
Exactly.
So.
I think it's being aware of that. That's one thing that I like to say, that I'm you know, I heard someone else, I don't remember who I heard say this, but I love the phrase, and I use it in my talk, was that, you know, your brain wasn't designed to make you happy. It was designed to make you survive.
Yeah.
And I think, but it's, once you become aware of this, that it wasn't designed to make you happy, that's, I think, the first key towards becoming more happy. You know, the point of that is not that we can't be happy. The point is that, just remember, your brain isn't always on your side. You need to, it's like, it didn't come with a user's manual. You know, that's why we need a user's manual. So once you start to learn about your own thought process, and you realize that, hey, we're all kind of like this. And so, and then once you're aware of it, and you're aware that it's happening in other people, you can kind of diffuse it.
Nice. I'm gonna stop you 1 second here, and you know, and have a little shout out to our folks watching us right now on Facebook Live, and also on our YouTube channel. We have Chanel. She comes very often. We also have Joanna. We have Mateos from Brazil. So we've got quite a few folks who have come and go, who's watching. These are the folks watching right now. So big shout out to everybody. If you have questions, do put it in the comments, and we'll be monitoring that as we go.
Yeah. Cool.
So,
Cool.
so big projects. What's keeping Stephen occupied these days?
Well, what's keeping me occupied is basically so I've been spending about half my time in the U.S. and half my time in Italy. Because since I'm able to work, remotely,
yeah,
I'm still about half my time in the U.S. and half my time in Italy, and probably around the summertime I'll be moving back to Italy full time.
Wow.
And then, yeah, and
so your wife travels with you at the same time?
Well, sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends on work. What's going on with work. But we have we have a son who lives in Italy because he's studying.
Okay, nice.
Studying there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I guess that's the big plan is basically to kind of settle down in just one place rather than kind of going back and forth. And yeah, I mean, I and just to continue learning new languages. I guess I'm just really focusing on Armenian right now. I'd like to visit Armenia, and one of the advantages of moving to Europe is I'll be able to. It's a lot closer.
Oh yeah.
To do that, and yeah, just I'm kind of enjoying growing my coaching business. And because in addition to working with the clients within the company, I also work with clients externally. So, growing my coaching business, continuing to learn, getting new certifications. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Any plans to go to language events or?
Yeah. Well, I hope to come. Well, I'm probably going to go to the Polyglot gathering in Bratislava.
Okay.
And I'm probably going to come to LangFest as well.
Wow.
Oh, good.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to go to the one in Japan. I know. I really want to go to Japan. I've always
never been.
I've never been, and I'm really, really curious about going. So,
well, when you said you can dabble a bit in Japanese, I thought you were gonna get it out of the hard disk and.
Yeah. 私は少し Nihongo hanashimasu.
Ah, 素晴らしい. That's very good. Well, it starts from there. You still have a few months.
Yeah.
Richard will be happy to see you in Fukuoka.
Are you guys going? Are you going to go to Japan?
I'm trying. I'm going to do my best. My wife comes from Nagasaki, which is like a 2-hour bus ride from there.
Yeah.
And I also have actually a client who's like right near there. So I don't know if I could sort of coincide, get it to coincide with the business trip. That'd be nice.
For me, most likely not, because I already have other travel plans this year. So, it's hard to make it all fit.
I know.
In 1 year, one budget, one everything. So, but well.
I've never been to the Polyglot gathering, and I'm kicking myself for it. But every year I go to Japan and Taiwan in the spring with the whole family. I also do like you, not half and half, but like 4 months in Japan and Taiwan.
Yeah. Wow.
And Polyglot gathering is like right there when I'm moving from Japan to Taiwan.
Yeah.
And it's just a very
time. Really work.
But I've never been. I want to go. It's a big event, and
What you should do is maybe try to spend part of the winter in Asia and come back. Or maybe just stop over in Europe on the way back. It's the end of May, beginning of June, so be like a different period. You'll be free from most of the winter and go back. Well, that would be good.
Yeah.
Although you do a lot of winter sports, so you like that. Yeah.
That's right. And also it's a it's a school year for the kids, so it's kind of hard to.
Yeah. No, I know.
We've got our routine built like this for a few years now.
Yeah.
And, as my kids grow older, definitely this will shift a little, but I do foresee that we'll be doing this until at least when my kids are 12, 13, 14. That's another good 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years of travel plans.
Yep.
How about with you guys with LangFest? Would you have anything different planned this year?
Oh,
some surprises?
yes.
I'm sure you do.
Thank you for asking.
Surprises.
Oh, we've got something big coming up.
Excellent.
It'll be announced pretty soon. We did announce a few weeks ago that we have a LangFest app. This is also we're very excited about having a LangFest app where you just download it onto your phone or your tablet, and it's a one-stop shop for everything LangFest. You can have your your
so you have the schedule, the talk descriptions, stuff like
Excellent.
that. And we can communicate directly through the
updates.
app. We're looking forward to populating the app right now. The backbone is already made, so once we get, we have selected a good, I would say 60-70% of our speakers. We're still going through some of the talk proposals, and once we get everything done, we get all the speaker information, the bios and whatnot, put that in, and we release our first app.
Cool. Wow, that's it's I think it's cool that I think there's a lot of out of doing these festivals. I mean, there's these get-togethers. I think it sounds like there's like a lot of incubation of new ideas, innovation, or things that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to talk with you. I'm putting my coach hat on about like what you've learned from organizing.
Oh wow!
That'd be a topic of a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Like what you've learned.
That's great. That's great. We definitely do that. If we could benefit from your expertise and your insights.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just really curious. I just really like to know what you've learned, what you discovered from doing it.
We've learned a lot, but I think if you could pull it out of us, we could like put it down on paper or something.
Yeah,
and make sure we build upon our experience.
I think it'd be cool because I think this whole movement of language festivals, which it started in the last 10 years.
Yep. It all started with Richard and Alex, and now with I think our big three, I guess, LangFest and Polyglot Conference, Polyglot Gathering, and then we've got a plethora of other online events, like the Women in Language. We had the Language Hackers. So there's been quite a few, and even more like the teacher side with Paulino. He's built built these.
Yeah, and so when I was in Italy in Ferrara, which is a pretty beautiful UNESCO city in Italy, and I went to, it was in October. Do you know Cesco Reale?
He was
Yeah. So
the Cesco Reale, or this isn't.
Yeah, Cesco Reale. He
who organized the games and who's a
bravo. And so he basically organizes a festival in Ferrara in October, which is called I think it's called like One Due Zwei. I think that's the name. And it's kind of like a little mini festival. It's really interesting, and they had it in Ferrara. So I think there's a lot of these events. People part of this community are organizing even local events and bringing people in from the area who are just fascinated by the concept.
That's great.
Really interesting speakers. So it's
that's fantastic. All right, we are running down. The countdown has started, but we will always end with the key question that we have for our speakers, for our guests. What is in the near or the midterm or the long-term future for Stephen? What are your
as I said,
what's
cooking is my move to Italy, and basically
that's in the short term, I guess, this year.
The short term, long term,
mid to long term.
Yeah, I'd say the long term, the midterm would be to, in addition to growing my coaching business, is I'd like to give more talks like the one I gave involving. I'd like to give some more talks, maybe not just in the language community, but I'd like to give some more talks about, particularly about, the neuroscience, about empathy, and sometimes related to language, but related to other topics. So I'm just, I'm looking at some venues, to do that. Because that's something I really enjoy doing.
Venues, as in, so you're looking for these events.
The place to do it.
I mean,
the place to do it.
The place to do it. Find, many online events.
I think they're online. So I've given talks in a couple of different places.
Are you building your brand online through these webinars and kind of things?
Not so much. I mean, I'm mostly getting, like my external clients are mostly coming from like third-party sources, like, from, as I work with other like coaching agencies and they provide me with clients. But yes, I'm trying. Yeah, I'm also working on, writing some more. I do have a website, and so I try to publish more articles on my website. It's something else that I enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think in the social media area, I'm a little bit, I'm not. It's probably not my area of expertise. So I guess one of the plans is to learn more about that.
Yeah.
Just get better at it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Stephen. It was a fascinating talk. Once again with you, it's just not just languages, but all the coaching aspects, the neuro aspects. It was quite interesting today. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks. Thanks so much for having us. It was really a pleasure to talk to you guys too.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing you in Montreal.
Well,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. We'll be there.
It's a deal. It's a deal. All right, everybody. Well,
All right,
once
take
again, see you next week.
All right.
Main boss.
See ya.
Thanks.
Bye.
À la prochaine.
Bye bye. À la prochaine.
À la
Au revoir.
prochaine.